I work as a yoga and mindfulness teacher and also an aromatherapist. And I don't know how I could have managed the past couple of years without having the skills of yoga and mindfulness. So I'm just going to start by just us all practicing a little bit of mindfulness. And so all you've got to do actually is listen to the sound of my voice. So you may have done mindfulness before, you might not. But whatever you're doing, if you can just sit comfortably, you know, make sure the spine's long, the chest's open, the chin's loose. And just for a few minutes, just be here. And feel your feet. Feel the crown of your head. Feel the length of your spine. And let the jaw be loose. And let go of the muscles of the forehead and the muscles of the face. And breathe. So what mindfulness is it's being present. And one of the ways to help us be present is to actually come into your body, or like you're doing now, just being aware of your body and how your body feels this evening. And just to breathe. You can breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, or in through the nose and sigh your breath out. And mindfulness is also about showing up for life and everything it offers. And that includes the challenges as well as the joys. It's about being able to respond as opposed to react. It's about being able to step back and look at what's in front of you. It doesn't solve your problem, but it helps you to see clearly so you can deal with it. And just notice your breath as it comes into your body and as it leaves. And mindfulness is also about being kind to yourself. When we have a problem, when we tell a friend, they're generally supportive and kind to us. But often we're not supportive and kind enough to ourselves. And that is really important, to be as kind to yourself as you are to those closest to you, those of you you love the most. And we're just going to come out of this practice now. And that was my starting point. So my story began last year. In fact, I've had 4 operations in 20 months. And the first operation was the day after Boxing Day in 2018, which was nothing to do with my breasts at all. It was to do with my forehead and my eyes. And I have terrible reaction to anesthetics. They make me feel sick and give me headaches. And it's the first operation I'd had for over 30 years, and the recovery was for a month. And it didn't occur to me for 1 minute that I was going to have 3 more operations in the next 20 months. So that was January of 2019. And then in the February, I got the flu. Now, I've never had the flu before in my life, and I thought I was going to die. That was before we knew about COVID. And it was terrible, but I got through the flu. And then March comes, and I get this letter, routine mammogram. Now, when I first got the letter, I thought, oh, that's such an inconvenient date. And so I rang up, I cancelled the appointment, but I did make another one. And then I went for the appointment, and that was in the days when I thought Zoom meant zooming from one place to the other. And I remember zooming up to the breast care clinic in Leicester, which is attached to the Glenfield Hospital. And if you've had a mammogram, which I think most of you will have had, you know what it's like. They're squashing your breast into these metal plates and put your arm here and put your arm there. And then anyway, it's over within minutes. It's mildly uncomfortable compared to what has to follow, which obviously I didn't know. And I zoomed off to my next point of call. I didn't give it a second thought. And then a few days later, and it's funny how you remember these things, it was a Tuesday, and I work at 3 different places on a Tuesday, and I got in at 2:30, and at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday, I leave to go and teach pregnant women, preparing them for childbirth. And there was this letter. Now, if you've ever had one of these letters, you know what it's like. I opened the letter, and it was all sorts of information with it. And what jumps out of the page is abnormal cells. So my first reaction was phone a friend. And then I thought, no, I'm going to sit with this. And I had butterflies in my stomach, and I timed them. They lasted 3 hours. And I sat down, and just like we were doing now, I put my hands on my tummy and I just breathed. I just thought, okay, at this point in time, I don't know anything. We have thoughts and we think they're facts, but in fact they're thoughts. And I did also think, I'm one of the healthiest people I know. I couldn't possibly have breast cancer. So not only did I sit and work with my breath, but I also wrote it down. It's always helpful for me to write these things down. Sometimes it's just bullet points. I put the date and the time, and I might not look at my little book for another week or so, even longer. And anyway, so I sat and I breathed, and then I went off and taught pregnant women. And I just got on with my life, and I knew I had to go to the hospital on a Friday, which was a few days later. So I turned up at the hospital on my own, and back in March 2019, you could bring a friend or a partner or a relative, and the waiting room was quite packed. At the moment, it's not packed at all. And I optimistically parked my car for an hour, and I was there for over 3 hours. And in that time, I had an ultrasound, I had a biopsy, I saw nurses, I saw doctors, I saw the radiographer. And I remember after an hour, I went and saw the receptionist at some point and said, my parking ticket runs out. And she was just so lovely. And sometimes that's what you want. She said, don't worry about it. Give me your details. I will sort it. And at the end of the 3 hours, and I have to say, everybody was very nice. But at the end of the 3 hours, I went into a little room with a nurse who was a very nice nurse. She was very young and she spoke very quietly. And I just remember everything was floral. It seemed like there was flowers everywhere, pictures of flowers, flowered wallpaper, flowers on the table. And because she spoke so quietly, you actually thought you were going to die, but I knew she meant it very nicely. And then I left there. And as I left, I said to the receptionist, can I leave my car a bit longer because I think I need soup? And I just felt I needed to go and sit down and drink tomato soup from a polystyrene cup. And I just sat there and I breathed, and I was thinking, I've got to go back in 2 weeks. We still don't know anything. And I wrote some thoughts down, and I drove slowly because I was doing something in the afternoon, and just working with my breath and focusing and thinking, these are thoughts, not facts. So 2 weeks later, I went back, and I've got 3 grown-up sons. 2 live in Bristol and 1 lives in London. But the one living in London was at home at that point, and he'd been around to take care of me for my operation at Christmas. And he was doing a post-grad at Nottingham, so that was taking up a lot of his time, and he was commuting on his bicycle and train. And they said, well, we want to take 1/4 of your breast off, and we want to do it next week. And sometimes you just need time to absorb that. But the first thing that came to mind was that because I'd had the flu in February, I'd had to cancel loads of classes, and I just didn't want to stop my classes. And I was able to put it back by 10 days. And so I didn't tell anybody that I was teaching or working with what was happening, because this was going to happen over the Easter holidays. So my last operation was the day after Boxing Day. This one was going to be the day before Good Friday. And what I remember was that there's somewhere I work privately in Leicester, and it's a 20-mile round trip. And on the 10 miles driving there, I'm thinking, you know, I really don't want to have a quarter of my breast removed. They're going to take my nipple, they're going to take my areola, and I'm going to have radiotherapy. And I was thinking, oh, what pain this all is. And then as I was driving through the countryside. It just suddenly came to me that if I was in a developing country, I wouldn't have had a mammogram. If I was in America and poor, which a lot of people are in the States, again, I wouldn't have had a mammogram and I would die. It was as simple as that. And I thought to myself, yeah, it's all right. I can do this. I can do this. So by the time I got to the end of the 10 miles, I was thought, ready. I'm ready. Let's bring it on. And so I went into hospital. I had the operation. I came home sick and headaches, and that is particularly me in anaesthetics. Not everybody's like that with anaesthetics. And then after a short period of time, after the Easter holidays, in fact, I went back to work and back to teaching, back to Leicester College. And again, hardly telling anybody, because I just thought, okay, you know, I'm all right now. My breast did look like a rolled up sock at that point. And at that point, nobody had mentioned reconstruction because they hadn't removed the whole breast. And then I went back for the results of the last operation, and they said, yeah, you've got to have a mastectomy, and we want to do it next week, and we want to do it on the 4th of June, which was the following week. And as it happened, the 4th of June was the date my mother had died of breast cancer 30 years previously. So it did feel a little bit of a very uncomfortable date to have. And I did at that point burst into tears. And then that didn't include breast reconstruction. And I felt, even though I was still in a bit of shock, that breast reconstruction was something for me because, you know, when I'm teaching yoga, I'm doing this. I also go swimming 3 times a week. And I just didn't want a prosthesis. And I didn't know all the different options with different types of breast reconstruction at that point. All I knew was that seemed a good idea for me. And I think it is very much a personal thing. And sometimes I think you have to have time to absorb, firstly, that you've got to have a mastectomy or double mastectomy, and secondly, what you want to do afterwards. But I knew, because I respond so badly to anaesthetics, it seemed like a good idea to have both at the same time. So the operation was actually put back a few days after the 4th because it was a different surgeon. And that was a relief because it just felt too close to home to have the operation on the 4th of June. But I also knew that I had to tell everyone and cancel everything. And I was out of my comfort zone. I was able to go home, work with my breath. I was able to write it down. And then I had to stand in front of my classes, and I finished them all 10 minutes early, so I had time to explain to people because people didn't know what I was going to say. And I remember one class had 18 people in it, and you know, when you're talking to people, some people are listening and some people aren't listening. Because I'd finished 10 minutes early and everybody was wondering what was going on, everybody gave me their full attention. And I have to say, everyone was wonderful. They were wonderful, they were really supportive. And I felt it was really important to say to them, you know, working with my breath and being able to embrace the situation, great help. And I had a very short period of time before the operation, but it felt important for me to put lots of things in place. Lots of little things. For instance, in this house, it's a terraced house, I've got the loft converted, and I need to go for a wee every single night, which means going down a flight of stairs. So I organised to go into one of my son's bedrooms, one of my sons who's left home, so I could be on the same floor. I was going to have drains because I was having lymph nodes removed, and I just know that I just wasn't going to want to go up and down stairs in the middle of the night. I organised to have a cleaner for a couple of months, and it might not be everybody might not want a cleaner or can afford a cleaner, but I just felt if I hadn't been able to do that, I would have liked to have thought I had a friend who could run around with the Hoover. I wasn't going to rely on my son for cleaning. I have to be honest. I failed there somehow in how clean he is, and but he was very supportive for the rest of the time. I also knew that I couldn't wash my hair. I wasn't going to be able to do this, and I organised to go to a local hairdresser's. I organised an appointment every week for 6 weeks. I think starting 2 or 3 weeks after the operation. So that was all set in place. And I also made one of my rooms downstairs like a day room, so that I knew in the morning I just got to get downstairs and I could rest in that room. And that's what I did. And I think that was important for me to be able to put all those things in place. It was important that I was able to write down how I felt. It was important for me to just keep focused on my breath. And I actually had a silicone implant, and it was a temporary one. That seemed the best option for me. And I had a more permanent one put in August just of this year. And that should last for a number of years, hopefully. At the moment, I've got one. So at the moment, my new breast does look a little bit like a tennis ball that's been squashed. And there's no nipple, there's no areola, definitely not sexy, but and at a later date I can have the nipple, the areola, or I know people have had tattoos, and I think they can try and make it more like the other one. But in these COVID times, it doesn't seem like a priority. So and I'm going to back next year, so I'll talk to them about next year, so I can hang on. I'm just really pleased that I can got something that can go in a bra, and I know you can't tell, and even when I go swimming, it is fine. And I'm very lucky, touch wood, everything is clear now, and I'm just very, very appreciative of the NHS, who have been wonderful, and just feel really lucky that I have the skills of being able to work with my breath and embrace the situation. And I did start doing yoga, very gentle yoga, 3 weeks after the operation. So that is my story, but I thought we could just finish very briefly with a loving kindness meditation, like I talked at the beginning about being kind to yourself. And we'll just do this once, very slowly. And what happens is I say the words and you say them after me. And actually, they don't have to be these words if you were to do it on your own. They could be any words, which is just about saying, yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm a really good person. But these are the words of this meditation. So you can have your eyes open or closed and just sit comfortably, place your feet wherever's comfortable for you, have your hands wherever's comfortable. And if you're on your own in the room and you want to say the words out loud, you can say them out loud. And these are the words. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. And just coming out of this practice when you're ready. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for listening.